Hi everyone, this is Asim Kapoor. Thank you for tuning in to our very first episode of ARK-cast. I'm here today at Rove Downtown Podcast Studio, and it's a beautiful morning in Dubai. I have here with me today Laura Garton. Laura is an amazing, top-notch L&D professional who has led people and development for many international hotel organizations. Laura has led the learning function for companies like Belmont, Kerzner International, and most recently, she was in her role as the director of the Accor Academy for Middle East and Africa. As many of us during the pandemic, Laura found herself in a situation where she got the opportunity to embark on a very interesting and exciting journey where she reinvented herself and relaunched herself to the extent that within a span of 4 months, she launched not just one, but 2 businesses. One being a copywriter for startups needing website and other support, and one for being a L&D consultant for various organizations. So Laura, welcome today, and thank you very much for being here today. So, to kickstart, I think at the time of the pandemic, just like many other people, you found yourself in a dire situation. How did that make you feel?
Well, I think firstly, thank you for the glowing introduction. It was very nice to hear. So I think, for 2020, none of us could have predicted what was going to happen.
Absolutely.
I think we still can't predict how the year is going to finish. Definitely not in the hospitality or the learning environment. Everything that we knew in the past has changed. So in terms of my own emotions and feelings, I think very similar to so many people out there, that to start with, there's this initial just total disbelief as to what was going on.
Definitely.
I think I would be the first to admit that when people started talking about COVID, I was like, it's just a flu. It's going to go away in 3 weeks, not really taking it that seriously.
Right.
And then obviously over time, realizing actually this is a really big thing. So I'd actually resigned from my previous role and was all ready to take on a new position. Right, I guess at the crux of the pandemic and the lockdown. My leaving party from my previous job was done virtually on Zoom, which is very much the first time that I've ever done something like that.
Right.
And yeah, this disbelief then turned into a bit of a concern, and that concern grew stronger. Of what am I going to do? It's completely uncertain. The job that I was going to take has fallen through, or it's delayed indefinitely, and then that doubt in myself going, what have I done? I've resigned from another job through no fault of my own. The other job has disappeared. What am I going to do?
Right.
And I think, again, that curve that we all experience is, for me, that acceptance thing of going, well, there must be some positive that I can take out of this situation. So for me, that was hang on a second, you've got legitimate time off work. No one's going to frown upon you for not working or not being in an office environment for a period of time. So I'm not sure if it's the same with you, but whenever I've changed jobs in the past, I've literally given myself maybe 2 weeks maximum of break between jobs.
Go back to back from one job to another.
Exactly. Yeah. You take a vacation, and the biggest vacation I've ever taken is 2 weeks outside of the office. And suddenly I was like, wow, actually, I have time.
Yeah.
And I remember reading or listening to various podcasts of people who were really embracing having time.
Right.
Whether it was spending more time with the family, taking up some different hobbies, revisiting activities that they used to do and just don't have time for anymore. And I was thinking, yes, this is what I should be doing, not just kind of sitting there going, I wonder what to do, actually make the most of having the time off work.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I think because what you mentioned is just such a typical embodiment of that, the curve of the human change or the human response to change and everything. And like you rightly said, that nothing was a bigger change than what 2020 brought for all of us, right? So you start off with the shock, and then you go into the denial, and then the whole blame game starts of saying, oh, it was not because of me and everything. Then you go into this whole sea of confusion, and then after that you start accepting and finding the silver lining in all those things and saying, hey, maybe it's an opportunity as well, right? I mean, it's I think that's brilliant, and I guess that's what led to you finding your passion and going with it. So what was that key driving force that kind of pushed you in that direction?
So I think, like I said, firstly seeing what other people were doing and making
Right.
the most of their time. And for me, that was writing. So I love writing.
Right.
I come from a family of writers. So my father and my brother are both editors,
Wow.
have been for years. So I think somewhere in there, it's in my DNA.
Right.
But it's time consuming. So to sit down and write things when you have a full-time job, it's very difficult. And I have enormous amount of respect to when I see some of these LinkedIn articles that people have time to really do that and juggle everything else they're doing.
Right.
So now I had this time, I thought, right, I'm actually going to be serious. I'm going to do a certificate in copywriting. I'm going to practice and start building my skills, because it wasn't necessarily done with another job in mind. It was done just because I'd wanted to do it for a while, but never been in a situation to be able to.
Right.
So for me, it started off as very much an opportunity just to enjoy myself. And I don't know if you're familiar with a lady called Cy Wakeman.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
So
for sure.
she talks very much about
Right,
drama and
right,
egos and everything like this. And she said something on one of her podcasts a while ago that really resonated with me, which said happiness and success is everybody's natural state before drama and ego and everything else gets
Kicks
in the way.
Wow.
And for me, it was so powerful in a way, because I thought she's absolutely right.
Right.
Like, everything I love doing is when you strip everything out and you get rid of all that mess and all, whether it's office politics that get in the way or whether it's time pressures, everything else slowly strips away at that happiness and that enjoyment. So while I was doing the copywriting, I was really starting to enjoy myself. And I was also starting to miss learning and development, because that at the end of the day is my passion.
Right.
And I was thinking, I'm really happy doing this. Why can I not turn it into something that benefits me and benefits other people through a business idea?
Right.
So, of course, you have to rely on your networks and seek feedback. I might have a great idea, but it doesn't actually mean that it's going to be accepted by the market. So I was speaking to a lot of people about copywriting, and there did seem to be a genuine need, whether it was just tidying up copy for learning courses, which is something that I do,
Right.
or for startup companies. So a lot of people, especially actually during the pandemic, wanted to launch new ideas, and were creating their own websites. But they just wanted somebody to kind of fine-tune things, create the right messages from an English native speaker.
Right.
So I then started doing small contracts for people, and it just kind of blossomed from there, which was great. And I think it picked up more quickly than I actually anticipated it would do. But then going back to that happiness and that passionate piece, I was still going, but I miss my learning.
Yeah.
It's something I've really done learning. I've done hospitality for nearly 20 years now, so it's very much ingrained.
Yeah.
in
Another
me.
part of your DNA, I guess. Yeah.
And to let that go is very difficult.
Sure.
So I figured that if I'd set up one business and I'd gone through the pain of understanding what it's like to be self-employed, how to set up your own website, how to start selling yourself, which is not something I'd really done before, that I'd done it for one, so it couldn't be that difficult to do for a second business.
Right.
It's
brilliant.
challenging, but
No, it's great. I mean, because I think you have, followed your passion, and your journey is again an embodiment of how things are changing in the market as well, right? Because look at organizations the way they used to operate previously. You have your own team, you have your own people, and no one would ever think of outsourcing things like this to an independent consultant, right? And now this whole, with the gig economy mindset and everything coming in, and with professionals like yourself in the market, I think the whole mindset about the fact that things are changing, we need to do things differently, cost needs to be controlled, but yet we need to keep developing our people. Talent is still critical. I think businesses are going out and looking at alternate options, which previously perhaps they would not have considered, right?
And I think that's one of the nice things, like I said at the beginning, to try and take a positive out of everything that's happening, that even though companies are having to make redundancies and they're having to scale back, it's an unfortunate situation to be in. And I know a lot of HR and a lot of learning and development professionals have suffered because of that. But what is very nice to see is that so many companies are still believing that they need to invest in their talent. Definitely. So they may not be able to support a salary of a full-time learning and development or a full-time HR director, but they recognize that those practices and the employee engagement or training still has to happen in some shape or form. And you've seen the rise over the last couple of months of digital learning. It's just gone through the roof.
For sure.
There's a demand there. People are still hungry to learn, which is great from my perspective, in that, to see this learning culture is still there.
Right.
And the gig economy, like you said, is going to help that.
Yeah, for sure. I think, and like you rightly said, digital learning, I mean, I remember from my own experience as well, in my time as a professional, when I was in a corporate role also, it was more of a very cool thing to do. It was a nice thing to do because, hey, it'll make us look good, it'll make us look, that we're tech savvy and everything, but it was never done with that level of seriousness to say, that it can really lead to results. Or it can make an impact, because, we're so used to the whole face-to-face kind of learning and connecting and everything. But I think the pandemic has taught people that things can be done differently, and it can have a far-reaching kind of an impact as well, right? So tell me this now. So as you went through this journey, I mean, were there any moments of weakness or, times when you felt like, oh my God, this is not going to work out, and what the hell have I gotten myself into, and,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. I mean, for me, this was a completely new journey. I think, you have your comfort zone, and I was like a mile left of that comfort zone with doing all of this. I think I should say I have nothing against the corporate background. I know some people can't wait to leave it behind, but for me, actually, I've had some great positions in the corporate environment and big international companies. And it's not like I've done a startup to escape all of that. It's actually, I did a startup because I wanted to go back to my passion and what I really enjoy and try something different.
Right.
So were there moments of weakness? Absolutely. There were moments when I was designing a website, which is something I have never done before. Like I said, I worked in learning and I work in HR. Technology and IT is not a strong suit of mine at all.
Right.
So firstly, trying to do that, and I thought, this can't be so difficult.
Right.
But actually, it was much more time consuming. So then when you find a task that you've not done before and you start to struggle, that automatically creates those doubts in your mind of, can I do this? Am I the right person to do it? Right. I'm sure everybody else can do it more easily than I can. But, a bit of perseverance with that. I'm quite lucky that I had people around me who could offer pointers and, this would look better like this. Why don't you try this? They'll test it out for me in that reassurance. And then I think once all the technology was done, I'm sure, as with many consultants and with many startup companies, you want things to happen immediately.
Right.
And especially when you've been in sort of the full-time corporate employment where it's constantly busy every day of the week. And then you launch a business and you're like,
yeah. Then you're waiting.
And you're
why
sitting
don't I have projects?
Exactly. Why do I not have a project when I launched my business yesterday?
Yeah.
Yes. So those moments as well, to just, you have to really stop and check yourself and go, let's be realistic and refocus on the fact that it's a long journey.
Right.
I think as much as the media is full of all these overnight entrepreneurs and overnight success, actually, when you read in detail about what people have done, it's always been a long build up, so to say.
Right.
So I think they were my main weaknesses or doubts. And I think fueled by the fact with what was happening in the economy, when I was seeing so many of my learning and development counterparts being made redundant and everybody fighting for very few jobs in the arena, and other learning and development consultants desperately trying to find projects, then again, that puts a little seed of doubt of going, is this really the right time? Because everybody is trying to do something similar.
I mean, it's like the pie has gone smaller. Everybody's trying to kind of still get a piece of it, and there are new entrants, including yourself, kind of, fighting for that same piece of pie. I know it can be extremely, scary. I mean, it can just be something that's like, okay, have I done the right thing? Have I not done the right thing? And everything, that self-doubt and everything kind of starts kicking in, right? So what was your, what would you say was your biggest support system? Like what kind of, continued to give you that cushion to kind of move forward and believe in it?
So I think there was a few. So firstly, I have a very strong support system in terms of my friends.
Right.
Most of those friends have come from the hospitality industry,
right?
Which is great because then they're on the same wavelength when we have conversations about what the industry needs, what the gaps are out there. So to have them to reinforce that, yes, you are doing the right thing, to offer me a bit of encouragement that it was definitely something that's going to be needed. And again, when I was having those weak moments, for them to go, it's fine that you don't have a business this week. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. So I think I was very, very lucky in that respect. And I think some other ex-colleagues that I've been keeping in touch with, also going through similar journeys. So to have somebody to relate to, or people that have gone like maybe last year and set up their own business and have been successful, again, to have somebody that will empathize with you, to go, it's completely normal. To feel the way that you're feeling. Right. And it's okay that your monthly paycheck is going to be very, very small compared to what you're used to, because that in itself, on the very basic level, is an initial shock.
Sure.
And then also for me, and I would say this for anybody, that having that home life support is massively, massively important. So I'm very lucky that I have a very encouraging, very supportive partner who believes in my idea with path learning and was very, very, very encouraging in that it's okay to walk away and stop trying to desperately claw for jobs. This is what you love doing, and do it. And, to have somebody who's not going to look at you and go, why aren't you in an office?
Absolutely.
So, I think, you're going through that process where you're going to do something different. So emotionally, it's going to be quite draining.
Yeah.
You have a lot of self-doubt to start with. And added to that, you don't really have an income to start with. You have to do it with your family's support.
Definitely.
100%.
Yeah. No, I mean, and then, like you mentioned, there's, your friends, your ex-colleagues, your family, perhaps, that level of relation already existed where, either you reached out to them or they reached out themselves to support. Many times I've seen people find it difficult because they take it as a sign of weakness to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I need help, or listen, I need some direction. It's not everybody's cup of tea, or not everybody's comfortable with doing that because they think that it'll make them feel weak, especially if they're coming out of a high profile corporate role where, they kind of call all the shots. And now it's like, okay, reaching out for help in principle is difficult for people. I mean, did you feel that, or have you kind of, kind of experienced that with your friends?
So, I mean, I 100% agree with you then. And I think there's been a lot of talk sort of in the last year of this concept of vulnerability. Yes. So whether it's your own business or within larger companies, of trying to encourage people that it's okay to say you don't know something or you want to ask for help. You're not the expert in something.
Right.
So I think for me, I was fortunate enough that I had people that I feel very comfortable and confident asking for advice and asking for opinions from. So whether they're mentors, whether they're friends, whether it's just somebody that I can have a coffee with and just bounce ideas around, I'm very lucky.
Right.
But I think, and this is probably one piece of advice, is that I've been quite selective in who those people are.
Right.
So I know people that if I went and had a conversation with them, it would be draining.
Right.
They're not the right people, and that's nothing against them as their personality, but for me, they're not the right people who are going to encourage, they're going to motivate me. And I would feel very awkward saying to them, I need your advice, or what do you think on this? Because the responses that I would receive are not what I need when I'm trying to launch a new idea.
Sure. So rather than get drained out, I mean, or at least you then target knowing who will be the right people who give you the advice. Okay, they may do certain reality checks for you, or they may kind of share messages which are not what you want to hear, but at least they will do it in a constructive manner that help you pick up things and move forward and stuff like that, right? I mean, that's the kind of encouragement you want at that stage.
And you need that reality check sometimes, because otherwise you end up in your own little bubble.
Definitely.
But you need somebody that's quite impartial, but they need to be impartial in a motivating way when everything around you is so uncertain.
Right. So, one of the things you just touched upon that we always, coming out from a job role, we have that security of that monthly paycheck coming in, and then that kind of goes away. That's, I think, the biggest shock that you have to adapt to. But as you kind of started off your own business, like, did you initially immediately start making money out of the projects that you were doing, or do you have to do some stuff for people, not really charge them? How was that journey all about?
So to start with, I very much went down the route of reaching out to my network and offering writing services at no charge.
Right.
Surprisingly, I mean, I did get a handful, but not too many. But then when I started going down using the freelance websites and connecting people in a much more business-focused approach, actually I got a lot of interest. I guess the challenge was then that I had to start with very low rates. So I didn't have to do much for free, but certainly I did quite a lot of work that would be lower than the rates that I would charge otherwise, or would want to charge otherwise. Right. But again, it's all about this long road, and I do still believe, even if it doesn't cost much for now and you don't make much revenue from it, if you do a good job and you build a good relationship, then you will reap the rewards from it in a year's time, 2 years' time. Right. So I think money is, of course, important. We all need money. We all want money. Yeah. But I think to start with, you have to be very realistic in, I can do lots and lots of work, but actually it's about building your credibility, building the relationships that are going to help solidify your business in the future.
And this is so, again, a kind of a reflection on a book I recently had read, right? So, for my own journey, what I did when I kind of was in a similar situation, one of the things I did was I got an executive and a business coach for myself because, we always talk about it as learning professionals. We recommend it for, our, senior leaders and CEOs and everybody, but you don't get one for yourself. So I said, okay, I'm going to go through that experience. And my coach kind of recommended this book. I don't know if you've read. It's called The Go-Givers, right? And the whole concept of The Go-Givers is as to how moving forward for people, the mindset actually needs to change from being a go-getter, which is what we are always conditioned to in a job role or in a business, because you need to go out there, you need to get the business, so on and so forth, to becoming a go-giver. Where, with these, they talked about these 5 laws of success. And the first law is that you need to give first. And you need to be open-minded to kind of giving and supporting and everything. And eventually, through the different 3 other laws, the 5th law, which is the law of receptivity, will bring things back to you. And you then start receiving and you start growing and so on and so forth. So, many people kind of thought that it is a bit of those, you put the right energies out there, the right energies will come back. But, I will recommend to all our listeners who've kind of tuned in to actually read that book, because it breaks it down so simply and so beautifully. And I think what I see in front of me, like with yourself, it's a typical example. You start off low, you start off doing some stuff for people and everything. You start getting, that message out there of what the capabilities are, what you bring to the table. And then over a longer period of time, that will give back, that investment will come back to you in much, much bigger ways and everything, right?
So, 100% agree. Right.
So tell me this, I mean, with you're talking about how companies are still continuing to focus on people and they know people are important, but do you feel that has the pandemic made people realize or made companies realize that people are important, or do you feel that it's kind of made them feel that they're more dispensable?
That's a great question. I've been seeing so many different examples of what companies have been doing since the pandemic hit. And on one hand, I'm pleased to say that I've seen some really positive, inspirational examples of how companies have treated employees, how they have really adapted to the flexible approach, how they have recognized the individuality of everybody. And I think the biggest thing that I've seen that I wished had happened years ago is that more companies are starting to trust their employees.
Right.
You don't have to be in the office with a manager sitting directly next to you to produce some great results. You can sit at home and not see anybody face to face for weeks.
Right.
But actually your productivity is great and the quality of work you're producing is great. And I think that's been one of the greatest shifts, positive shifts, I should say. On the negative side, because unfortunately there is always one.
A negative side, yes.
There are some companies who've gone to the other extreme and recognize that it is very much an employer's market right now. There are so many people out there looking for work that the salary levels are falling, the working conditions are falling. There's a bit of an attitude of, well, if you don't like the job, don't like the company, then leave. They're less likely to want to motivate and hold on to their employees. So I think, unfortunately, there's both things. I hope there's much more of the positive aspects happening. I really hope companies don't take advantage of so many people needing work, because if you've got talent, you need to retain that talent.
Right.
And yes, you have to find different ways to motivate them, different ways to connect with them. But it's not overly complex. It's just a different way of doing things. So I would like to think there's much more positivity. I think pandemic has definitely reinforced the importance of relationships. So whether that's family, friends, or work relationships, there's been so many people wanting to spend more time building that stronger bond with people, which is a great outcome. But yes, let's hope that the companies continue that as well.
Great. And then I'm sure, at this stage, there would be many people who are in a similar situation, right? Like yourself and I was and everything. If you had to kind of give them, two pieces of advice to kind of, move forward and how to go about it, what would be those top two things you would recommend?
So my first, biggest, number one thing would be, if you're going to start your own business, your own idea, pick something that you genuinely love and are good at.
Right.
Because you are going to have to work for free at some things.
Right.
And if you are slogging away trying to work on something that you don't enjoy, that's going to destroy you.
So
and
find your passion,
business.
literally.
Yeah, so find your passion and stick with the passion.
Right.
What you enjoy doing is generally what you'll be good at doing.
Right.
And you're more willing to spend the time and put the effort into it.
Right.
And my second piece of advice would be to not put too much pressure on yourself.
Right.
So I think we've had this conversation before of going, it's so easy to get wrapped up and, you're trying to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week because you're desperate to try and get business in. And especially when you're working from home, there's nothing to stop you from starting work at 6 a.m. and finishing at midnight. But actually you have to do a reality check and say, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay that today I'm not busy because tomorrow I might be. And this week might be a slow week, but next week I might have contracts coming out of my ears. Yeah. So I think, to not put too much pressure on yourself, especially at the beginning.
Great. Oh, that's brilliant, Laura. And thank you for being here today. I think it was such an insightful chat. And I do hope that people who've kind of tuned in and are listening do kind of find similarities between journeys that they're kind of going through and are able to take away from it and learn from it as well. From my point of view, I think, similar situations I found myself, and I can really resonate with everything that you've kind of spoken about. So thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure.
Thank you for being here today. It was an absolute pleasure to speak with you. So to our viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. It was a very insightful conversation, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. Laura and I would love to hear more from you, so please leave us a comment and let's talk.